Welcome Professor Jamshid Asadi to talk on managing young talent at work. Organizations today are investing massively in attracting young talent, yet they continue to struggle with engagement, performance, and retention. Most explanations focus on generational differences or cultural diversity. But you defend a more radical thesis. You argue that the real issue begins before young people even enter the workforce, in how they are trained. And you raise a provocative question, backhand index pointing right in a world shaped by artificial intelligence, where knowledge is instantly accessible. What is still the role of a professor in preparing talent for work? Professor Asadi, if AI can deliver knowledge better and faster than humans, what should education actually do?
Thank you. Let me start with a simple but uncomfortable idea. Artificial intelligence is not eliminating work. It is redefining what creates value in work. And this has a direct consequence for HR. Today, many young graduates are well educated, but not operational. They have diplomas, but they do not have the competencies to work with AI. And in organizations, this creates a silent problem. Employees who are present, but not productive inputs. So the issue is not only how to manage talent, it is how talent is formed before entering the organization. Because if education does not evolve, HR will continue to compensate for a system that produces misaligned skills. Now, let's go back to your question. If AI can deliver knowledge faster and better than any professor, then transferring knowledge can no longer be the core mission of education. This is the real rupture. For centuries, education was based on a simple model. The professor knows, the student learns. But today, students can access more knowledge from AI than from any classroom. So why would they come? Not for answers, for direction. And this changes the role of the professor completely. The professor is no longer a transmitter of knowledge. He or she becomes a designer of thinking, a philosopher for questioning, a coach for reasoning. In many ways, we are returning to something very old. The professor becomes again a philosopher, not someone who gives answers, but someone who teaches how to ask the right questions. And this is precisely what organizations need today. Not people who know, but people who can think, decide, and act in a world shaped by AI.
Tone, professional, engaged, slightly intrigued. That's a very interesting perspective. So if I understand you correctly, the real challenge is not only how companies manage young talent, but how this talent is actually formed before entering the workforce. And in a world where artificial intelligence gives instant access to knowledge, this raises a deeper question. What should education really focus on today? Should it still prioritize knowledge transmission, or should it shift towards something else, like critical thinking, judgment, and decision-making? Professor Asadi, how do you redefine the role of education, and more specifically, the role of the professor in this new environment?
That's exactly the shift we are facing. Knowledge is no longer the problem. It's everywhere, instant, accessible. So the real value is no longer what you know, it's what you do with it. And that changes everything for education. The role of the professor is not to transfer knowledge anymore. It is to train judgment, to develop minds that can think, question, and decide under uncertainty. Because in the real world, there is no perfect answer, only choices, trade-offs, and consequences. And here is the key point. Artificial intelligence can optimize decisions, but it does not take responsibility for them. Humans do, and as long as responsibility matters, we remain essential.
Thank you, Professor Asadi. That's a powerful redefinition of education in the age of artificial intelligence, training minds rather than simply delivering knowledge, and preparing individuals not just to perform, but to decide and take responsibility. A crucial perspective for organizations navigating uncertainty.
And perhaps this is the real challenge ahead, not competing with machines, but making sure we don't stop thinking like humans. It was a privilege being with you.